641 BC, 3254 AM. Josiah ascends the throne of Judah, said in the scriptures to be the last good king. By this time all copies of the Torah, books of Moses, were lost, the temple having been sacked by the Egyptians. During his reign a copy of the Torah would be discovered. 640 BC, 3255 AM. Antius Marcius becomes the fourth king of Rome, the grandson of Numa Pompilius, reigning for 24 years until 616 BC. Thales of Miletus was born, a famous Ionian who predicted the darkening of the sun to occur in 583 BC, Phoenix Transit. He was a Phoenician by remote descent according to Herodotus, probably an Israelite, and considered one of the wise men of Greece. 630 BC, 3265 AM. After 15 years over the ecliptic, the Sodom-Trojan apocalypse comet group has strewn a massive field of detritus, its orbital velocity slowing by about 5 years with the loss of mass, reducing its subsolar orbit to 281 years instead of 286. King Ashurbanipal of Assyria dies in this year. 628 BC, 3267 AM. Jeremiah prophesied in the 13th year of the reign of King Josiah of Judah. He foretold that Judah would fall by an ancient nation and that Judah would be totally destroyed. While Judah would be led away into captivity, Israel would be driven into all nations, and that their captivity would actually be for their good. 1 Jeremiah. 627 BC, 3268 AM. Nabopolassar becomes the first king of the emerging Chaldean dynasty of Babylon, when he led a successful revolt against Assyria. This was 124 years, 1488 months, 744 plus 744 of the Nabonassar calendar in 751 BC. The very end of the Babylonian year was 1273 after Babel, paralleling the 1273 BC date Assyria annexed Babylon. This Babylonian dynasty would last exactly 90 years, 1080 months, until 537 BC, when the Babylonians would be defeated by Persia. 622 BC, 3273 AM. The prophet Ezekiel is born, paralleling the 622 Anno Mundi date of the birth of Enoch in 3273 BC. As did Enoch, so too did Ezekiel prophesy many last days events from visions and dreams. 621 BC, 3274 AM. The infamous Draco of Athens passes stringent legal reforms that oppress the people, from which is derived the term draconian. The Athenians are thoroughly Greek, but their predecessors were Ionians, Israelites, the earliest Athenians claiming they came from 12 tribes. This year was 744 years, golden proportion, after 1345 BC, when the Israelites fled their allotted territories by ship for the Aegean, and 324 years, 108 times 3, after King Jedediah, Solomon, sold 20 Israelite cities to Phoenicia in 945 BC, one sacred number. 619 BC, 3276 AM. During some reconstruction in Jerusalem, a forgotten copy of the books of Moses was discovered inside the walls of a building. The priests began reading the scriptures to the people in the temple, and King Josiah immediately instituted spiritual reforms and had the altars of Baal and high places, groves of Asherah, destroyed throughout Judah. This was the 18th year of King Josiah, and the people were astonished at the contents of the Word of God. Israel's history is interwoven with both the orbits of Phoenix and Nibiru. In this year it was 2484 years, 414 times 6, or 138 times 18, from start of the Vedic calendar, the Kali Yuga or Black Age. This was also 828 years, 414 times 2, or 138 times 6, after the exodus of Israel from Egypt in 1447 BC. Additionally, this was 792 years Nibiru orbit, after the Israelites first took land in Canaan in the War of 1411 BC. This is exactly 10 years before the Egyptians killed King Josiah in 609 BC. 1. 2 Kings. 2. Chronicles. 617 BC, 3278 AM. King Nabonassar of Babylon makes war against the other Euphratean kings, Akkad being the seat of his Chaldean dynasty. In the 10th month of the year, the Assyrian and Egyptian armies attacked Nabonassar but were driven off. Then Nabonassar attempted to conquer Assyria, but was repelled. as recorded in the Babylonian Chronicle. After this he was stricken by a disease which affected his ability to speak and lasted 7 years, almost to his death. Nebuchadnezzar too would inherit this condition from his father. At this time the mother of the last king of Babylon was 31 years old, a priestess in a temple in Babylon, having been born in the 20th year of Ashurbanipal of Assyria in 648 BC. This woman would go on to live 105 years, 1260 months, to 543 BC, the 11th regnal year of her son Nabonidus. This was 80 years to the fall of the dynasty to Persia in 537 BC. 1. Ages in Chaos, Volume 2. 616 BC, 3279 AM. L. Tarquinius Priscus becomes 5th king of Rome, reigning for 38 years until 578 BC. He was the son of a man from the Greek city of Corinth, considered a foreigner to the Romans. His first military campaign was against neighbouring Latins, and he victoriously brought many spoils back to Rome. He also laid the foundation plans for the Circus Maximus, and conquered many Sabine cities, his conquests resulting in a large influx of Latin and Sabine blood into the city. Through conscripted labour he built the famous sewers of Rome. Over 650 years later, Pliny the Elder remarked that despite quakes, building collapses, and immense pressure, the sewers of Rome were still remarkably intact in his day. 1. Livy. 3. Natural History, Mining and Minerals. 615 BC, 3280 AM. King Artaxerxes begins the Median War against Assyria. The Assyrians call on their vassals to the north for aid, Cimmerians called the Uman Manda in the Babylonian Chronicle. These were the Israelites who had been taken into captivity and settled between the Black and Caspian Seas and along the borders of Media and Persia 130 years earlier in 745 BC. These Cimmerians from Cumri, Omri of Israel, king of Samaria, turned against Assyria and attacked the great city of Nineveh, forming an alliance with Media where many of their Israelite kin had been deported. This was exactly 792 years after Israel conquered Canaan and began a nation in 1407 BC, which occurred in the 2488th year of the Annus Mundi calendar. This was the year 2488, 1244 plus 1244 of Vedic calendar, beginning in 3103 BC. Israel has become God's battle axe and weapon of war as prophesied. The Assyrians were powerless to do anything about this breakaway state to the north, the Cimmerians immediately setting up their own government in a city called Aria, named after the scriptural Ariel, city of David, Jerusalem. This is the origin of the term Arian, this city being the epicenter of Israelite migration throughout the ancient world. This is exactly 552 years before Rome annexed Judea in 63 BC. 1. Ages in Chaos, Volume 2. 2. Post-captivity names of Israel.